When we are not our true selves, it's nearly impossible to deeply connect with others because we're not connected to ourselves. Let's dig into this conversation and have some fun. Hi, I'm Tamara Zoner. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. Come in, sit down, and grab a cup of love. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. I am your host, Tamara Zoner, and I am so glad that you're here with me today. I have a very special treat in store. One of my very favorite guests is back again to co-host with me. Rosanne Neiboer from the Chakra Way was with us a few months ago, and I just adored Rosanne. And I loved the way that she shared what she does and her wisdom and knowledge of the chakras. I even got a chakra reading from her, which was phenomenal. So I invited her to be a guest co-host with me today, and we are talking to Lee Hopkins of Patterns of Possibility. Now, Lee is a coach who helps people create lasting friendships, and he's also transgender. And you can imagine how difficult it must have been for him to connect with other people when he himself wasn't authentically Lee. I welcome my co-host, Rosanne Neiboer, and our guest, Lee Hopkins. Okay, welcome, Rosanne. Welcome, Lee. Thank you for being here. Lee, why don't you share with us just a little bit about your journey? How did you get to where you are today as Coach Lee, and throw in your spiritual history as well, if you like.
All right, a little bit of spice, and everything nice. My name is Coach Lee Hopkins. I'm a friendship coach. I help people make close friendships and meaningful, lasting relationships. I I started doing this because I was lacking this experience of feeling close and connected to people in my life. When I grew up in a small town, and I felt disconnected from a lot of people there. Couldn't make close friendships. Didn't know how everybody did. I was just like everybody else is close, and they invite each other over to hang out, and they go to football games and things together, and I'm just outside of the loop, and I didn't understand why. But I'd heard that I needed to find my tribe. So then after some years of being like, well, everybody else found their tribe. I just have to leave and find my tribe. So I went to college and I met new people from different backgrounds, even international students, and I still felt really disconnected from them. So I thought, well, I still have to find my tribe. So I ended up leaving the entire state of Ohio. That's where I grew up in Ohio. I left Ohio and I moved to California. And I'm thinking, just got to find my tribe. And I meet more people there and I feel more open and people know my name. Like I even start doing a lot of karaoke. People are connected to me in karaoke,
I love
but they
karaoke.
don't. Yeah, you do? See,
Yeah.
karaoke is awesome. It is like I felt like I could express myself and people knew me to give me high fives and stuff, but they really didn't know me. So I thought, well, I had to find my tribe. I moved all the way across the US and I haven't found my tribe. So maybe there's something else in that. I found that another phrase was going around, you need to be your authentic self. And I'm like, huh, maybe I'm not being my authentic self. And so I thought, well, I can't be my authentic self here because they're not going to like me. And this is around the time where I started to think a little more about my gender and sexuality. And I'm like, well, I don't want to tell them that I want to transition. So as you hear me now, as you see me now, I'm a male,
Mhm.
but I'm a trans man. So I was female, so female to male. So I was female to male. And so I didn't want to tell them. I really didn't have the language either to understand what I was going through. So I really couldn't talk to them. So my solution was to leave the entire state again.
Okay.
So I left and I moved to Chicago where I am now. And in Chicago, I found the queer population that would help me understand what it was about myself. Caitlyn Jenner was coming out at the time, so it just made sense. And so here I am. I found my tribe, and I'm being my authentic self. And I'm with people, the queer population, like maybe just 1% of us actually do a medical transition, physical transition. and legal and all that stuff. They helped me go through the process. And, guess what, Tamara and Roseanne, I still felt disconnected from the people. And I'm like, we're 1% of the population. This is my tribe. I'm being authentic. What's going on? And so I discovered that, well, I was the common denominator. And so I really didn't know that much about myself. I really didn't know what I wanted. And I was hoping that the transition that I'd made physically would change me emotionally. It would change me spiritually, but it didn't. It didn't. Now, in no way I'm saying that I didn't want this change. It's not it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we often look outside of ourselves for something that is supposed to help us within. So this feels right. It's like buying a new shirt, all right? It feels right. It's comfortable. It fits you. It's your brand, but it's not going to make you have all the muscles that they advertised on TV. It doesn't do that for you. So it didn't do that for me. It didn't make me feel whole and complete. It was part of me. It was just a piece that I wanted, piece that I believe I needed, piece that fits right, but I still had to do more. And so discovering that about myself, I started to share that with other people. That's how I started making really closer friendships and telling everybody about it because it feels great. Like, oh, I've got to tell you, this is what I did. This is what I did. And maybe it'll work for you too. Now I can't shut up about it. And so here I am talking to you.
Wow. So with every choice you made, it was almost as if you were running away instead of to who you actually are on the inside. And I love how you noticed, and you didn't use this word yet, but once you finally became more vulnerable, that's
Yes.
when you started connecting.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I was running away until maybe 5 or 6 years ago when it really sank in because that's about the time I transitioned.
Mm.
It's like maybe a year after I transitioned, I had an experience with someone who was just it was a growth experience. And so let me just share that experience.
Sure.
So, I transitioned and I was still having difficulty connecting with people in the queer community because, I couldn't say anything right. I didn't know what the right pronouns were. I didn't know what dead naming was. Just because I was having the experience of being trans myself didn't mean that I knew everything about what it meant to be trans and to the other people that were there as well. I didn't understand and connect with their experiences. So I wasn't able to connect with them. So I wanted to go out and make new friends. And I've been in therapy too, so I'm kind of speeding this up a bit. I had some time to go into therapy and talk about what was stopping me from making friends. Oh, it's a mindset. Well, I'll just take this mindset and I'll flip it, and I will be more connecting with people, and I'll have a mindset in which people will want to be attracted to me. So the next time I go to a place, I had this mindset: I'm going to make a new friend, and we're going to have a great conversation, and I'm going to be myself. And like I said that to myself and I go to the place. It's a comedy club. And during intermission, I meet a cool guy. We have a nice conversation. We're talking. And I'm like, don't forget, in my head, don't forget, be your authentic self. Maybe you want to tell him that you're trans. Maybe you want to tell him. So lean the conversation towards the LGBTQ stuff. And I do. I lean it. And they had mentioned to me they had never seen a trans person before. Hmm. They had never understood the process. And they don't understand why anybody would ever want to do that. And they were so polite and so understanding. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to be my authentic self. I'm going to share with you my experience. And I say, I'm trans. And they just, they freeze. They freak out. Essentially, they don't say anything else to me and they leave the entire venue. That's,
Wow.
that's, yeah, that was everything I was running from. That was everything I was running from right in my face. The rejection, the fact that nobody liked me if I told them exactly how I felt about something or revealed my authentic self if I was vulnerable. So that happened to me flat out. It was the one thing I was running from Ohio to California to Chicago, all over Chicago, away from. It caught me right in the face. It was like, universe was like, you need to have this experience right now. Here it is.
How
And it
did
was painful.
Yeah.
how did you pick yourself up from that? Because that must have been so hard. I mean, like you say, you kind of faced your worst fear. You're thinking, like, this is the thing that's going to help me connect with people. And then it comes right back and smacks you in the face.
Oh,
So for you to continue, so what happened next? What did you do to come back from that?
well, immediately after, I cried.
Yes, fair enough.
We all would.
I was very upset. I was angry. I left. I remember leaving and feeling so angry. It's like, da, da, da. And, but I had some people to help me process that. I had therapy to help me process that. And some years later, I realized that that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I realized that I've been stuck in a pattern of behavior where I would connect with people where I wouldn't be my authentic self, or I wouldn't be open and vulnerable. And what I mean by open and vulnerable is sharing how you feel. It's
Yeah.
simply sharing your feelings. And I wouldn't share that with people. And I would pretend and I would hide. And here I was about to do the very same thing to a new person. Because if they had said any more words to me, I would have tried really hard to tell them how great of a person I was. Remember the 20 minutes of conversation that we just had? We don't have to not be friends because I want to be your friend. We've had a great conversation. Just because you don't understand, guess what? I'm going to teach you. And as you can hear this in my voice, I'm trying to change them. I'm in desperation of trying to change them and make them somebody they don't want to be. And truthfully, I don't want to do that either. I don't want to change anybody. That's a lot of energy to put into resenting and and hiding myself and doing the things I'd had done before that was a part of my pattern that left me feeling alone and disconnected. And so after that, I was upset initially, but I reflected on it, understand that, wow, rejection really has a reward, because they would have just resented me and I would have just resented them. It would have created a connection around that. And that's not what I want.
Mhm, mhm.
But how the way that that person reacted to you wasn't really about you, though, was it?
Correct.
No, you're
It
right.
was about them. It was about their inner whatever rubbish that they had, their inner narrative. It was nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But it all came back to you, feelings wise, there you are in the toilets having a sob. It was horrible.
Well, and isn't
Don't
that
look
true
at me.
for most of us? Like it's almost never about us. People's responses or reactions are theirs, not ours.
Yes, and if I could add, that's another important takeaway that I had from it, because I used to have so much difficulty saying no to people.
Mhm.
But what happened to me was that somebody said no to me, essentially. They said no to all the desperation, all the desire that I had. And they said, no, I don't want this. Essentially, it was all about them and knowing what they wanted. And I survived. I had to go cry on the toilet. Yep, I did. I had to go process my feelings, but I came out of that experience feeling a lot better. It took some time to process, but man, it was so much better for me that they said no to me. So when I get to a situation in which I need to say no to someone and I'm thinking about, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings, they will be okay. They will learn something from this because I did.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. I think we should never, of course, set out to hurt anyone's feelings, but we're
Absolutely.
also not responsible for other people's feelings. And so when we're
Mm.
trying to caretake them, we're actually shortchanging them and not allowing them their own journey and their own growth. Lee, can we go back? Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? And I'm curious as a parent, uh, when like, okay, here are my multitude of questions.
All right.
When did you know that your body wasn't fitting who you felt you were? What was your religious or spiritual upbringing, and were you supported in your family environment? And obviously you're from Ohio, so that's not a super liberal place. So, I mean, I'm in the Detroit area. It's not
Okay.
that far. So, but tell us more about like your early days, Lee's early days, and when you knew and whether you had support and whether this felt like it would be safe for you to explore in your youth.
Oh, well, those are all wonderful questions, and I really appreciate them a whole lot, because I think you hit the nail on the head when you notice that Ohio isn't really the most liberal place. And so I grew up in a Christian household, and I really didn't feel supported in this. I didn't understand what Christianity was. Honestly, I heard one thing and I observed another. I heard that it is supposed to be loving and supportive and connecting and, everything that goodness is. But then I witnessed the people not doing that as much. And so um, like I was told I should go to church, but in church they didn't have the answers for me. I had all kinds of questions about the teaching itself and things like that, and I felt disconnected from that. And so with that experience of just feeling disconnected, I didn't feel safe about talking about anything that was on my mind. I didn't feel like, oh well, everybody's supposed to know this one thing about religion, and it's we're supposed to agree on it, and it's supposed to be goodness, but I don't see people acting that way, so I didn't feel safe sharing with anybody. And when I would share, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel supported either. So if I went out on a limb to do that, so we're talking about the transgender piece. I started to feel really disconnected from my body, or feeling like this wasn't the right thing for me when I started to go through puberty.
Okay.
It felt weird. It felt strange. It was like I was looking at, because I used to hang out with the guys a lot, and I would play games with them, and I would do all kinds of masculine things. And I thought this is what masculinity was. What's wrong with my body? It's the disconnection. There's something wrong with it. And so I wasn't really supported in that space. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know what the words were. I didn't understand what I was feeling until um I don't know, like 2014 or 2015 or something like that. I didn't really understand what it was that I was feeling, like what words were for it and everything.
Right. If you have never been exposed to
Right.
that kind of community or those stories on TV or anything, how would you
Right.
know? You wouldn't have the vocabulary because you'd never been exposed to it.
Right. Exactly. It was just like that. So when I came out, my family, they weren't really supportive of it. They weren't. I remember the if I could go back to the conversation with my mom, I think it was 2016 when I told her I was going to transition. We hadn't had the greatest connection and relationship. We talked off and on for years. It's been like that. But I wanted to try and to connect. And so I wanted to tell them. And she had said, I remember I said, I'm going to transition. She was like, you're going to transition your body and everything? I don't understand. But what I heard, because those are the words that she said, I remember those words. But what I heard was her criticizing my decision and telling me that I was a bad person.
Oh,
That's what I heard. And so it severed our relationship even more. But she didn't understand. How could she? Based on what you just observed, how could she? Because she didn't know anything about it, and she didn't have those experiences. And she's like, I don't know what this is. What are you talking about? So I just kind of flashback, I guess I relived the like the childhood experiences where everything I did was wrong and it was not correct and stuff like that. So they couldn't support me. They didn't know how. That's what I would say.
So it's down to education, isn't it, really? I can, if your mother had been exposed, if it had been a wider conversation, she would go, oh, I see, I've heard about that as a thing, and would have been more
Hmm.
accepting and understanding. And instead you felt fully sort of misunderstood and rejected.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and to your point, Roseanne, I think that I was causing a bit of a disconnect. If she was curious, I was causing a bit of a disconnect because I'm like, I heard that as something it wasn't. I was reacting instead of responding to her. I was like, "Oh, you're judging me again. I'm never able to do the right thing," and blah blah blah. And it went down that way.
yeah, which is such a natural human reaction. We hear what people say based on our own experience and feelings and affect, and we can't always, throw that branch back and say, wait a second, let me ask you more questions about what you just said so that I'm clear that I understand it. That's another piece of vulnerability that most of us aren't. We're not willing to be wrong. We're not willing to be misunderstood, and we're not willing to be mistaken. But if we can change that around and get curious instead and be willing to be wrong and be willing to be corrected, then
Hmm.
that is what creates connection, right? Like, this is what I heard you say. Is that right? And your mom might have said, goodness, no, right? But neither one of you had the awareness necessary to take that
Hmm.
conversation further. And
Right.
yeah, Roseanne, it is so much about education. And
Mm.
we know the church, whatever religion it is not usually, I won't say that for 100% of them, but not usually supportive in educating people around homosexuality or transgender. It's like that stuff is bad and wrong. So we'll keep it quiet because we don't want you
Mhm.
to know about it because you might want to do it,
Yeah.
which is not the case at all.
Yeah, no, I feel like the presence of the LGBTQIA community is growing so much stronger these days that I think maybe in 2016, fair enough, in Ohio, I'm not American, so I don't understand how,
Understood.
how different that is. But certainly in the UK, like it's unavoidable, that sort of awareness that has come up really in those last 6 years, we're talking about. And I feel like, whilst people can go, oh, I don't understand, or it's silly, or it's this, or it's that, and they can say what they want, but the fact is that it's out there, and it's common knowledge and common understanding. You can read articles about it. There's characters on the television or radio or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that it's keeping that conversation going to as many people as possible that allows for everyone to form their own opinions, and everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, but to also understand, so that when a child comes to a mother, they go, okay, this might be a bit uncomfortable for me to process, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because to your point, Roseanne, when we talk about education and letting people know that essentially I exist, like it's there's the reality is that once upon a time I was like a fabled unicorn. Like, what is that? What does it mean to be transgender? I can't even fathom it because I couldn't fathom it. I didn't know what that was happening with me. And now we're everywhere. And it's important for the fact that we're everywhere. We permeated their consciousness because they can imagine it and they can talk to someone else and they will feel less alone in their experience when someone says, I'm transitioning. And they can talk to somebody like, have you heard of this? I didn't know this was a thing. And without trying to be offensive, they're not trying to be offensive. They're just trying to get more information about the reality that they see. And so I mean, if I would run into that person who've never seen a trans person before, I was the first person.
Mhm.
I believe that I just kind of shocked the heck out of them because they couldn't even fathom it. And they perhaps knew what trans people look like, or they thought they knew what they look like.
Mhm.
They told me that they'd never met one before, and they were talking to me for 20 full minutes. So it just kind of they didn't have any awareness or education about it. And now it's so different. And now it's makes it possible for me to come here and talk to you both about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's we really don't know who we're talking to, and good that they didn't make assumptions. And hopefully now, if it's a perfect world, they've gone back and reflected on how they reacted instead of responded, and have made some amends by trying to do the right thing for other people as well and educate
Mhm.
themselves. Like, ultimately, I think that is the goal: education, so that we understand, so that, and this goes for any scenario. If we don't understand, that's an invitation to learn more, not to go put your head in a hole and hide and pretend the thing doesn't exist just because it makes you uncomfortable. I think that discomfort is like the most gorgeous opening door that says, come through and learn more.
Mm.
Mm.
That's what they say, isn't it? Someone said to me the other day, change is, what do they say? It's difficult, it's messy, and it's glorious.
Yeah, I was just saying this in a talk, and I even have these funny slideshows to back it up. But change is hard at first, messy in the middle, but gorgeous at the end. And I often compare it to like cleaning out a closet. So when you don't know what you don't know, you got to take all those things off the shelves and you throw them in the middle of the room, and suddenly it's a disaster. This is the messy middle. But then you get to get rid of what doesn't serve you and put back what does, and maybe collect a few other items to organize your closet better, your mind, your heart, your soul. And then at the end, the room's clean again, the closet's perfectly organized and beautiful. This is the gorgeous end of change. And
Mm.
it's safe to change, but our brains don't really know that either. So, we also have to, we don't have to, nobody has to do a darn thing, but it would be great if more people actually understood the protective measures that the brain takes to keep us in the status quo, whether that's healthy or unhealthy, happy, sad, good, bad, it doesn't matter. The brain is just like, stay the same.
Yeah, it's safety, it's security, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's why we want to stay in the status quo, because we know where we are, heaven forbid things to change. And, I'm always in awe because I am a sort of safety, I'm a risk averse person. Like, you won't catch me on a roller coaster or anything like that. I don't like that. But I do know that change, that, it's terrifying, but you've just got to push on through. You just do. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll often say to myself, this scares me. That means I have to do it. Right? It's not if it's life-threatening or whatnot. Roller coasters are fun though, Rosanne, I'm telling you. But if it's something I'm resisting because I'm afraid of it, then my counsel to myself is, you better do this. You better do this uncomfortable thing, because this is you at the edge of your growth. And I want to keep growing and learning. So bring us back now. Here you are, Coach Lee. So you've gone through multiple transitions, not just the physical one, but the internal one, right? And when did you know, or do you yet, that you felt at home in your body and in your heart and in your soul?
Oh, when I could start like talking about it and letting other people respond or react to it without crying. Without crying. But I mean, I started maybe not so much with just the transition, but it's just a physical manifestation of what we do. Like, so as humans, I mean, as people, what we do is we see something or we feel something, respond to it. One of our five senses kicks off, and we have a feeling. We have a feeling to it. And so people see trans and they respond, or they have a feeling towards it, and they'll share what they respond or how they feel about it with me. And my response to their response is something that I want to be I'm more aware of. I'm more aware of it, and I can control it and respond back to them with whatever curiosity or calmness or kindness, or reflect back their feelings towards them. I started to feel more comfortable with myself when I could do that with other things, like opinions about people. So essentially, I've been running or from people. I've been running away from people's opinions of me forever, because I was always doing it wrong. I believed I was doing it wrong. And whatever it was, everything I was about is just incorrect, and it was bad, and it was shameful, and it was hurtful. Whatever opinion someone's going to give to me, it felt like that to me. And I realized that, wow, you know what? Just because I transitioned, that's not going to stop. In fact, it got so much worse. You better deal with that. You can respond in the way you want to. So you need to process that feeling. So that was me having an inner monologue with myself. I need to process that feeling. I need to understand like what it is that people are really expressing to me, and not just making it up when it hits me. Like when my mom talked to me, she was curious. She wasn't critical. And so how often does that happen to me? How often have I heard this curiousness as critical? Oh,
Such good self-inquiry.
yeah. And then I just turn the volume down of my own self-critic, turn it down, and listen to the curiosity, because I want people to know me. I really do. I want to be vulnerable. So I had to tone it down and realize that, whatever it is that people bring to me, it's about them. And I get to respond how I want to. I get to know how it feels and recognize that whatever it feels, however it makes me feel, if they point their finger in my face and tell me you're bad and wrong, well, okay, that's not about me. It's about you. And I may not like that feeling, so I might not want to hang out with you, but I don't have to respond to you in a way that shows that, reflected back to you, you're bad and wrong. I want to yell at you. I want to tell you you're a bad person. I don't have to do that. That takes away my peace. And I like myself. I like my peace. So I started to realize that just a few years ago, like get to this level, and I'm changing every day. I'm learning more about myself every day. But I used to be terrified to try new things because I was afraid of other people's responses to that. But then I just started to focus on myself and be more curious about myself, and trying to understand where that feeling of criticism came from, and tone the volume down on that so I can really connect with people.
That inner critic, that super ego, is always the thing that comes and just sits right in the middle, like an unwelcome something in the middle of your
Yeah.
So I mean, you've obviously done so much work, Lee, on yourself, within yourself, but what's your kind of soundbite answer, if you like, if you have one? Because I mean, this is a massive, you could spend your entire life delving into this, but dealing with the inner critic, with that super ego that comes and messes with you. How do you deal with that?
Well, I really like to tell people to focus on how they feel about things. So the super ego is the one that is going to tell you, I think it's external, there are thoughts that are going to tell you that, you should feel this way or you should. But focusing and taking some breaths and meditation is something that I never thought I'd do, but it is so powerful to be able to be away from light and electricity and energy and be with yourself and really think about how you feel about things. Like understand how you feel about things. And I tell people that your feeling is the truth of who you are. Like that is the one thing that makes you powerful and no one can take that away from you. People can make it uncomfortable for you in this 3D space outside of you. They can yell at you and say, hey, for example, your hobbies. There's the one thing that people are afraid to share, but it is the activity that brings you joy. And scientifically, joy is the activity or the emotion that we lean towards. We lean towards, we're looking for it. We're always talking about it. So you find it difficult to not want to share your joy. And people will make it uncomfortable for you to express it, but you still have it. It's still yours. It's you who decides not to express it. It's you who will decide to change your joy if you want to. The people will make it uncomfortable for you, but you ultimately get to make that decision to change it. And so I started to realize that about myself. Like, well, how do I really feel about this? What's covering it up? What's the truth of how I really feel about this? And hanging on to that and knowing that gave me confidence to be here, be there, and say anything I wanted. Essentially, it's always a joyful thing. Like, I mean, express my hobby, essentially, not to say anything I wanted, but express my hobby.
Nice.
No matter what other people say, because I like it. And because they look at me funny doesn't mean that I'm not going to like it any less. I don't like them looking at me. That's what I don't like. I like the joy. I still have the joy for it. So I know you asked for a soundbite, but man, I blabber. But I would say I tell people to look for the truth of who they are in three things. It is the event, how you feel about that event, and why you feel that way about it. We always want to know that and express that for ourselves. And knowing that for me has made me really able to connect with myself and know what I want so I can connect with others.
That's a good soundbite,
Yeah,
right?
I'll take that. Clip that one up.
All
Yeah.
right, thank
Beautiful.
you.
And so it makes absolute sense why you're doing what you're doing now, Lee, when, I think that we all teach what we most need to know. And so now you're teaching people how to connect, which is so beautiful. So beautiful. And so tell us about your work. Tell us how you're doing this and how people get to work with you.
All right. Yeah, you can find me at patternsofpossibility.com, and that's where I have my I have like a free materials and things like that, like three ways to improve your conversations and so forth. But um really quick, what I tell people to really focus on is if you want to connect with someone, you have to know about yourself. And you have to give something to know about you if you want to know someone else. And so I have Making Meaningful Connections free PDF. It has 50 journal prompts so that you can know more about yourself so that you can share with others. But not just that, it talks about what connection really is and how to connect with someone, and also how to put your your history or whatever it is about yourself that you learn into a format in which it's digestible for someone. It'll really help you be vulnerable. This is the key, is to be vulnerable with someone. So when you're vulnerable, I said being vulnerable is only sharing essentially how you feel, but you really want to make sure you share something joyous. And the reason why you want to share something joyous is because it's the emotion that is safest. That's the one that we usually run to. We run to because we enjoy it, right? We keep trying to show that you want them to associate joy with you, first of all. but also you want to make sure that they're able and capable of handling your joy. When you share something joyful with someone, if they're going to shame you, if they're going to belittle you or hurt you, just imagine what they're going to do if you show them anything else. You show them sadness, they're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to be a good person for you to be around. They're not going to help you in your sadness. So, if you want to be vulnerable, if you're afraid of making connections with other people, I recommend that you share the joy first to see how they're going to respond, because it's up to you to decide whether you want to be friends with them or not. So, on my website, Patterns of Possibility, you can find this Making Meaningful Connections PDF. It explains how to put your stories into this format called the gist format, JIST, but it's make sure it's a joyful expression of who you are so you can connect with them in joy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it so much. Rosanne, do you have any other questions for Lee?
I have a million other questions.
Yeah, I know.
Wonderful. That means I get to come back.
Oh, absolutely.
I should try and keep this brief. In terms of like making friends, because this is what you're all about, is like you meet someone new, you make a good friend, making a new friend, a new connection. Now I'm speaking in my personal life, I meet lots of people, but there are very few people who actually then go on to become actual friends. I feel like I have maybe a handful, maybe 5 people who I call really good friends, who know everything, who I could say anything, do anything, and they'd be like, got you. And then you look around and you look at other people who've got, a group of, they could invite 200 people to their birthday party. And look at those people and I go, how do you have 200 friends? I have 5. And so what is that? I mean, is it just because I only like, just me? Is it just me, Lee? Tell me. But yeah, that's the part of friendship that I find really interesting, is like some people have 1 million friends and they're, oh, I know everybody, and other people like me who have like
I'm with you, Rosanne, 2000%. And it is definitely you. And it's because it's because you value the quality of your friendships. Like when I think about this, and if I could quantify it, I think that there are a myriad of emotions that we have. Like I use this Robert Plutchik's psychology. He's a motivational psychologist, and he basically says there are 8 basic emotions. And I think the more of the emotions you share with people, the closer you are with them. So I think that people who they have 200 friends, they may only share a couple of different emotions with them. They might show happiness, they might show sadness, or they might show happiness, anger, and that's it. They don't get to really spend time to get to know them deeply. They don't get to see the other faces of them. They get to see the happiness, they get to see the sadness, maybe they get to see anger. They don't get to see fear. They don't get to see what you're disgusted by. They don't get to see what you're anxious about. They don't get to know those about you. But the people that you have closer to you, they get spend the time and energy to know them. And furthermore, the closest of closest friends will allow you to hold them accountable. They're going to show you, you're going to be able to show them what they did to invoke fear in you, to make you angry. They're going to be able to hear you say it, and they're going to want to hear you say it because they have your best interest in mind. They know you so well, they see themselves in you so well that if they hurt you, they have hurt themselves and they want to fix it. They want to know what they did. So I'm like, you got it right. I mean, I think that you've got what the people with 200 friends, they're looking for. And of course, along the way, you're going to meet people and you're going to say hi and bye to. You're going to keep in your contacts. You're going to show that 1 or 2 just so you can fill some space and feel connected with some people if that's what you like. But I think the people that you have in your life are likely to show up to you at 3 o'clock in the morning if you had an emergency. Those are the people, I think those are the people that the 200 are missing. Like that's what they really want. So kudos to you. I think that is really awesome.
I do too. And I just want to echo that, Rosanne. So, it's not just you, it is you, but that's the beautiful thing. And in fact, 3 to 5 close quality friendships are really, that's the jam in psychology, right? Like that's what we're looking for. We can have 200 friends, but if you have 200 friends, like Lee said, are they actually friends?
Yeah.
right? Are they people you can turn to and people who you love to talk to? And Lee, as you were talking, I was remembering this moment with my best friend, Becky, who's actually been on the show, and she's a doctor of psychology, where she did something that hurt me. And because I love and trust her so much, I was able to say, hey, this is what you did, and this is how I felt. And I don't like feeling this way. And I never, because it was creating a separation, and I never want to separate from her. So in order to keep our strong connection, I had to say, this is what hurt. I just want you to be aware of it. Because in my own past, with feeling disconnected from people, that's what I would do. Oh, they hurt me, so bye.
Yes, that's exactly what I would do too.
Right? But when we're in a depthful relationship, we're willing to say, this hurt me,
Hmm.
and give them an opportunity to make it right, or just understand us, which ultimately makes it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
I even
it.
do that with my kids all the time. I'm like, you guys, am I doing things right? What else do you need? Because they're teenagers. And even when they were younger, it's like, hey, how am I doing as your parent? You know,
Absolutely.
can you trust me?
If,
Are you
if
able to come to me and tell me when I did it wrong?
if I could say just one more thing to
Yes,
Roseanne,
please.
I would love to say that these are all the things that I believe you're doing right and connecting with people. I tell people to search for these three things: your history, your hobbies, and your habits. You want to connect on those things because those are who you are. I believe that because you only have a few close friends, you have a great sense of self, and you know those things about yourself, and you're willing to communicate that to other people. Like, this is important about what you know about my identity, my history, my hobbies, or the things that I enjoy, I love, and we connect on those things. We find joy in those. And my habits, those are the things that make up my life. You understand my work schedule. You understand like that I like to save money. So you're not out here trying to make me spend money. We understand each other. We understand each other's lifestyles. And I think the closer the friendships are, you can share your feelings, but you also know those history, hobbies, and habits about each other.
Which
And
connect your hearts.
what connects you?
Orange is
Yes.
now, Lee.
Exactly. So now I'm done talking. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh
It's
gosh,
just
it's
been a
been
blast.
so good. Thank you for all your wisdom. And this, again, you're just a beautiful example of why we go through what we go through. And
Mm,
anybody who's in the middle, the messy middle right now,
mm,
just put your faith in the gorgeous end, because we go through the trying, challenging, painful circumstances to get to the golden nuggets that then we get to share with other people and reach out that hand and help them through their hard times, because we get it.
mm.
And none of us here have the same story, obviously, but we can connect because we know the heart is curiosity and kindness. And you said another word in there. You said curiosity and kindness. And that's what like love and friendship in life is all about, in my opinion. Let's be more curious about each other and just extend more love, like, and a generous mindset toward everyone we meet. Ah,
Yeah.
thank you, Lee. And thank you,
Thank
Roseanne, for coming back and asking
Yeah.
some beautiful questions. You just opened Lee right up to some good, juicy nuggets. I'm so grateful for all of you, both of you, and all of you listening and being here. Please let us know what you thought of this episode. And I definitely want both of you back. And man, I wish we lived closer. We could all sit together and have some coffee and talk for
So do I.
hours.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tamara. Gorgeous to meet you, Lee. Really
Thank,
enjoyed meeting you. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank you
much.
thank you so much. It was the same for both of you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure. All right, Spirit Cafe, thank you for being here. I'll talk to you again next week. Be sure to like and share and subscribe, and you know the drill. All right, bye. Thank you for joining us on Spirit Cafe. Please leave all comments on our Spirit Cafe Facebook page or in the comments below our YouTube videos.